Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus, an inclusive religious community of people supporting each other in the search for truth and meaning. I am Hal Midgette. I have the honor of being the current president of the board of the UU Fellowship. Today, I will be your service leader and presenter. We have been conducting YouTube services since Sunday, March 22nd, due to the call for social distancing as a result of the COVID-19 virus. I hope you all are safe and well. One of our traditions is the lighting of the chalice. The chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It speaks to us of reason, tolerance, and freedom, and also of compassion, respect, and love. May its flame ever warm and illuminate our lives. One of the ways we proclaim the vitality of our fellowship is through sharing brief and personal joys and concerns. I'll start by lighting a candle for all of our brave women and men who put themselves at risk each and every day as our first responders. The nurses, doctors, police, EMTs, and also those who are continuing to work in essential areas such as grocery stores, pharmacies, and fast food restaurants. I will also light a candle for all who have died from the COVID-19 virus and for all those who have suffered or continue to suffer with the disease here and around the world. I will light a candle for Ahmaud Arbery, the young man who was shot and killed near Brunswick, Georgia. And on a happier note, today is Mother's Day, so I'll light a candle to honor mothers. A poem by Linda Sue Ulrich captures the importance and diversity of mothers in our lives. It is called For All Mothers. For all mothers and mother figures, the grandmothers, aunts, and extended family members who mother, the soon-to-be mothers, the wish they were mothers, the never wanted to be mothers, the it's complicated mothers, the birth mothers, foster mothers, adoptive mothers, stepmothers, the used-to-be dad mothers, and more than one mom mothers, the single mothers, separated mothers, stay-at-home mothers, unhoused mothers, the grieving mothers, those who grieve their mothers, and those whose grief is complex. For all the communities that mother, and for all who depend on the Great Mother, you are held and beloved. And I would like to add, for all the mothers who aren't physically with us, but are in our hearts and minds. If you have any joys or concerns that you would like to share for our next service, just email those to our office administrator, Brenda Stevens, at uufcga@gmail.com. As Unitarian Universalists, we are guided by 7 principles, which are symbolized on the stained glass behind me. These principles greet us every time we enter Grace Fellowship Hall. I will discuss these in detail during my presentation, but before today's presentation, it is our custom to join in a celebration of life toast. The toast was written by our own member, Ed Wilson. If you have something to drink already, you can use that or do as I do and toast with a mock cup. We celebrate life. We celebrate life with its beauty and its pain. We lift these cups in tribute to the achievement of human minds and hands, and in sensitivity to the frustration of misfortune and heartache. not fixing blame or credit for the outcome of chance. Sensing the risk, savoring the joy, sharing it all. Knowing the certainty of death and remembering the value of each moment, we drink our toast of celebration to this time, to the future, to each other, to the throbbing of the earth and sea and sky with life. Together, we drink this toast in celebration of life. And now for my presentation entitled, The UU Path, Fireflies in the Dark. During these trying times, when the daily news is full of grim statistics, political warfare, and a painful overabundance of reruns, I am still an optimist. It's May, the flowers are blooming, birds of all varieties are singing, and soon the fireflies will be out and about. Optimists are hopeful and confident about the future or the successful outcome of something. I believe the UU path is an optimistic way of navigating through life. And in my talk today, I will try to explain that opinion. But first, I'll share my personal journey into optimism, starting with the title, The UU Path, Fireflies in the Dark. Some of you might be thinking that if fireflies were illuminating the UU path, then it must be pretty dimly lit. As a child, here in Columbus, summer evenings were filled with the sounds of frogs, the buzzing of mosquitoes, the sweet smells of honeysuckle, and the delight of fireflies flickering in the yards and trees. Learning that the light of fireflies wasn't really fire, but bioluminescence. Only later would I learn that the females were in the trees flickering in species-specific frequencies to lure the males from the yard below. And sometimes, carnivorous beetles would imitate the female fireflies in order to lure the unsuspecting males up to dinner, but not one of their choosing. There is much to be discovered about fireflies, such as there are over 2,000 species of fireflies, and that fireflies are not really flies, but beetles. And if numbers really mean something in all of existence, then Gaia loves beetles the most, with over 600,000 species. That is how I viewed summers for decades, until one warm summer evening in Kansas. It was night, and I was returning home from Kansas City, where I was taking a math class. While driving through the countryside, I was stunned by what I saw. I pulled the car over, and for the next 10 minutes, witnessed the most amazing sight I have ever seen. Untold millions, and perhaps billions, of fireflies were lighting up, filling the whole field with light in a way that was and is still hard for me to comprehend. In a world of many religions, Unitarian Universalists stand out as a light in the darkness. That light is optimism. UUs are optimistic. We are not Pollyannas, but realists. And I contend we are fundamentally optimists who see the possibility of a positive outcome for humans in our world. My own optimism might be explained by what I read as a child, starting with an abundance of science fiction. In science fiction of that day, humans were usually pushing out from Earth, voyaging into the unknown, and often finding a strange world with even stranger sentient beings. Sometimes the stories were bleak, as the aliens had ambitions to destroy us. But eventually, we either overpowered them with our human ingenuity or befriended them, and ultimately humankind lived happily ever after, walking hand in tentacle into the sunset. There are 4 books that have influenced my optimistic views, besides all the science fiction novels. The first was Voltaire's Candide, where with all the terrible events and misery in his life, Candide kept proclaiming that this is the best of all possible worlds. I read this in college, and it started me thinking about the world as it is and the world as it could be. I reject that this is the best of all possible worlds because that is not realistic. We can't resign ourselves to tolerating violence, cruelty, injustice, and suffering. I have confidence that the world continues to improve. Not necessarily linearly, but in fits and starts. This feeling that the world is getting better is one of the reasons I joined this fellowship, because it is engaged in what I view as a battle of good versus evil, and is on the side of improving the human condition and the world. The second book that had a major impact on my optimistic view is David M. Raupp's Extinction, Bad Luck or Bad Genes. His book was my first foray into looking at extinctions on a geological timescale. I never before had realized how many localized and worldwide extinctions there have been in the Earth's history. There are all types of mechanisms that can cause extinction, such as fast-moving big rock from the sky, or for indigenous Americans coming into contact with Europeans. There have been 5 major extinctions in Earth's history, some causing as much as 95% of all life in the oceans to go away. The amazing thing is that life just didn't slowly creep back to its former levels, but virtually exploded back and became more extensive and varied. Raupp was the first author to alert me to the fact that we humans not only might be in Earth's 6th major extinction event, but most probably are causing it. But being a half-glass full person, I believe that humans can and will discover ways to avoid an end to our species. The third book that influenced my positive thinking was Edward O. Wilson, On Human Nature. Initially, E.O. Wilson studied social insects, such as ants, then turned his brilliance to analyzing how humans interact and why we evolved to be so social. As a social species, our fate is interconnected with each other. In the past, as we evolved in the savanna of Africa, alone we were food, but as a tribe, we were the dominant species to be reckoned with. We, according to Dr. Wilson, have evolved to live in tribes and are fairly predictable in what we do, how we behave, and what our limitations are. Humans have done well, even in the face of severe adversity. The world, with its extremes, highs and lows, continues slowly getting better, like a high tide slowly coming in. Waves come in and recede, but gradually get higher and higher. I contend we haven't seen, or perhaps can't even grasp, what the high water mark of human achievement might be. Former President Barack Obama said, "Progress isn't always a straight line or a smooth path." Finally, the fourth book and the most positive book I've ever read is Non-Zero, The Logic for Human Destiny by Robert Wright. Looking through the lens of gaming theory, the author sets out to prove why humans are where we are today, and that we are now in the storm before the calm. Yes, I did say storm before the calm. Through meticulous logic, he detailed how our universe, at least the portion we live in, is primed to move from entropy to organized systems. While, according to his analysis, life, while not guaranteed, was certainly favored. He contends that the evolution of life was for the most complex system, that life can't be a zero-sum game where the winner takes all, like in tennis or football. Life has to be a non-zero-sum game, and this is what propels us forward. A non-zero-sum game is like trade, where both sides of the bargain gain, maybe not equally, but they gain from the interaction. His analysis of history and culture accomplished the same, showing that evolution of civilizations have been positive, that while there have been setbacks, the general progression has been greater complexity and forward, with humankind having a greater control over its own fate. Our 7 UU principles virtually scream optimism, that we can and will make a positive difference in the world around us, and that our endeavors will be successful. These principles are represented on the stained glass behind me at the entrance to our Grace Fellowship Hall. It is only fitting that they greet us as we enter. Let's take a brief look at the 7 principles that guide us. Number 1, inherent worth and dignity of every person. We have no apostates, no unbelievers, no sinners not worthy of our illumination. Everybody is somebody. We demonstrate our optimism by reaching out to all and do not have to segregate others into infidels or sinners. We welcome humanity to our smorgasbord of ideas and love. Number 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Nothing is more positive in belief and action than to grasp the concept that others, regardless of creed, sexual orientation, or cultural practices, are equal as individuals. Compassion is the engine that drives the UU optimistic train. Feeling and doing for those in pain or need, making the world a better place. Number 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Tolerance is not fearing others, but embracing them with a belief in a positive outcome. We embody the Nike cliche, no fear. We listen to and learn from all. We have to be optimistic about the end results of embracing our own belief and fostering the well-being of others in the pursuit of their own but different belief. Number 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This is our vehicle for carrying us into the future. It is the sword to fight the tyranny of ignorance, intolerance, and religious bigotry. This principle rejects the notion that the search for knowledge is fundamentally wrong, that truth was discovered a very long time ago. We question that all the truth in life has been previously revealed and encoded in unchangeable form. As UUs, we understand that the world is constantly changing and are open to new ideas and discoveries in our quest for truth and meaning. Number 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. This is possibly the most optimistic of all our principles because it has a large trust component that independent, individual action will be thoughtful and produce an acceptable outcome. And even if we are not in the winning faction of the democratic process, we will accept it and carry on striving together for a positive outcome. Number 6, the goal of the world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. When looking around without our optimistic glasses, the world looks a little like Billy Joel's song, "We Didn't Start the Fire." We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. In many ways, it has gotten better since our species began. It's easy to get distracted from the big picture of progress when there are episodes of setbacks, like the situation in the Middle East or the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's start at Homo sapiens beginning. Small wandering tribes. If you weren't in a tribe or were out wandering away from your tribe, when another tribe found you, you weren't going to be invited to dinner. You were going to be dinner. As the tribes evolved into more complex social groupings, congeniality towards strangers became more the norm. And now we have international law, a world court, rules for war, though they're not always followed, and the World Wide Web. I believe there is greater tolerance now than at any other time in the world's history. Yes, sometimes events going on in the world seem crazy, but there is still forward progress. Life and human interactions are unquestionably better than at our beginning. Humankind has come a long way and the journey isn't complete. As Billy Joel said in his song, "We didn't light it, but tried to fight it." We are optimists. We haven't just tried to fight it. We are daily fighting the fire through words, thoughts, and deeds. Number 7, respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. Some people believe the earth was given to humankind to subjugate, to be masters over all animals, that the earth was man's to exploit, that there would be continuous bounty. The earth population 4,000 years ago is estimated to have been 30 million, and today it is 250 times greater at 7.4 billion people. There are stresses on the earth and the web of life through habitat destruction, exploitation of the oceans, and our demand for energy through the use of carbon-based fuels and the resultant warming of our only world. Because we value reason UUs in general accept the scientific method and the scientific wisdom that the Earth is a complex organism of which we are but a part. We know that our Earth doesn't do well when some of its species aren't doing well or become extinct. While we promote saving the environment, we acknowledge that the world is in flux. It always has been. I am an optimist that we can help those that are blind to see that this current flux, to include climate change, has human handprints and footprints all over it. It is estimated between 150 and 200 species are going extinct each day. This is about 1,000 times what is considered the baseline or normal extinction rate. Am I still optimistic? Absolutely. Knowing that the Earth has been through at least 5 major extinction events in the past, only to bounce back, not to the level that it was before, but with greater abundance of life, I think Mother Earth will survive this 6th extinction event that is wrought by humans. But with reason and knowledge and reaching out to educate others, we Unitarian Universalists can help to lessen the effect of this time period, scientifically called the Anthropocene, or in layman's term, Age of Man. I think Howard Zinn, an American historian, playwright, and social activist, sums up best of what I'm trying to say. To be hopeful in bad times is just not foolish romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember these times, those times, and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we act in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now as we think human beings should live in defiance of all of that is bad around us. It is itself a marvelous victory. These are great words and remind me of the wonderful people springing forward to help during this pandemic, often walking through the very jaws of death to do their job, their duty, their mission. The Kansas Fireflies that inspired me to make this presentation are a beautiful memory and a symbol of optimism to me. I am trying to be one of those millions of fireflies that help shine a light into the darkness. I invite you to join me and walk the UU path. And now, even though we are apart, if you would please join me in spirit for our closing words. With unity of spirit, we go our ways in universal fellowship until we meet again.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine,